what is the single factor which occupies our daily life? Can we look at it? What is the dominant factor, the dominant element in our minds, in our daily lives, with which we are occupied most of the time? Just think about it for a moment. What is that thing which occupies our minds, our consciousness most of the time? And that factor may be responsible for all our problems. We are beginning with an open mind, an open heart, without projecting any solution in the future. We are just looking at the problem. Or I would say we are looking at the reality, the what is. So what is that reality which is dominant in our daily life? If we look closely, deeply, honestly, that dominant factor is the factor of thinking. The mind is busy most of the time, thinking. And through this thinking, we create problems. And then through that thinking itself, we try to solve the problems. And thought seems to be the dominant factor in our daily life. And with this thought, fear comes. And then we are all the time occupied with thinking and fear. So we have to really understand this whole process of thinking, which actually originates from our past memories. Thinking is simply a reaction from our past memories. The movement of memories is thinking, and there is nothing wrong in it. Thought is one of the important functions of the brain. We need it for our survival. We need it for our daily jobs, our work, for cooking, for driving, for learning a language, learning different subjects. Thought is very useful. Memory is quite useful. And when there is a problem in the world of the practical, the physical world, we need the tool of thought to solve those problems. If my computer is not working, thought is very useful. If my tap in the bathroom is not working, thought is very useful. But where does the problem begin? When we try to solve all problems of our life, including the problems in our relationships, the problems of our inner world, then it becomes another problem. When we depend on thought to solve every problem of our life, that becomes a problem. Thought is very good at solving problems in the physical world, in the technological world. But the same tool becomes disastrous when we try to use it in solving the problems of our relationships. The problems of lack of peace, the problem of suffering. So we have to really look at this over-dependence on thought. And this over-dependence leads to a number of problems. And it is very interesting to watch how our mind functions. thought creates problems, and then thought tries to solve the problems. And mind is all the time busy in creating the problems and trying to solve the problems. So it becomes a problem creating and the problem solving machine, and which is very unfortunate, because in this process our brains become really tired, exhausted. If we are turning our brain only into this machinery to generate problem and then trying to solve them, and especially artificial problems, the problems which are imaginary, we can understand the problems in the technological physical world. They have a certain solution, and we keep learning, improvising in that area. But the brain does not stop here because of our conditioning, because of our specific education, the cultural conditioning, economical conditioning. The mind is generating problem. And one of the problems, for example, is when the thought is defining us, when we are considering ourselves as an image created by thought, when we are considering others as an image projected by our minds. So we turn ourselves into those images. We turn ourselves into those thoughts. And then we are living in the world of thought, in the world of images. Then we lose direct contact with ourselves, with other human beings, with life. And then once we have created this imaginary world projected by thought, we are all the time living with problems. There will be a problem of separation, division between us. There will be a problem of conflict. And then conflict leads to suffering. We are all the time occupied with ourselves, with our well-being, with my well-being, against the other's well-being. And we become self-centered in this process. And this self-centeredness seems to be the central factor of all the problems. When we are living in the world created and projected by thought, and the desires and the fears, then our world is very limited. The way we look at ourselves and the world and the life and other human beings is very narrow. So first of all, do we realize why we have reduced ourselves in the form of a thought, in the form of past memories? And when we are living in this form, there is this quality of unawareness, the inattention. There is no awareness at all. When all our senses are occupied by thought, by our mind, by the memories, then there is no freedom. So living in the world of thought all the time, not knowing its right place, then we have created an artificial imaginary world. And in that world, problems are being created by thought. And then thought is trying to solve the problem. And in that process, we create more problems. We solve one problem, which gives rise to another problem. And then it becomes a vicious circle. There is never an end to the problems. We are all the time living with problems. And this is really so unfortunate. It's a tragedy to live with the problems all the time. because then there is no space, there is no inner freedom. We are most of the time living with this pain, the psychological pain, the psychological suffering, the hurts, the pursuit of security and pleasure. And it is very strange that when we experience some moments of silence, really deep silence, deep emptiness, the mind becomes afraid of it. When we are desiring that problems should end, and when a rare moment comes that when there is no problem, mind becomes restless because it has become so used to of living with problems. When it sees that there is no problem, it starts becoming anxious and it starts looking for problems. This is an irony, a great irony, that we are not really comfortable with this sense of emptiness, this quality of nothingness. A state which can be a source of happiness, a source of joy, becomes a source of fear. Why? Is it that we are not actually giving space and time to experience those states? We immediately react to that state of emptiness, the state of deep silence, and try to fill it with other things. So the question is, why mind becomes so uncomfortable when nothing is happening, when there is an emptiness? Why we are not able to live even for a few minutes with this sense of emptiness? This could be a question to live with. When those moments come, can we simply be there fully, not escaping from those moments? In the beginning, it may be discomforting because brain is not used to of it. Brain has become too much used to of living with problems, living with thoughts, living with fears, living with searching something, even when there is nothing to search. So, is it possible to give a chance to our brains to really get accustomed, to be really comfortable with this sense of emptiness? This could be an experiment. And when the mind is occupied with these thoughts, and when thought is projecting an imaginary problem, for example, what other person is thinking about me, what my friend is thinking about me, it is an imaginary problem. Of course, the other person may be thinking something about me, but that is not my problem, and I can talk about it. If there is a relationship, if there is a problem with a partner, with my parents, with my friends, there is always a possibility of a dialogue. If I am open, I can initiate that dialogue. But when mind is simply busy with imagining what they are thinking about me, what society is thinking about me, then mind is creating an artificial problem. It is actually escaping. Thought becomes a great escape. The occupation of thought is like escaping from that emptiness, that silence. When there is a real problem, thought is required and we can employ that tool. But we should also not forget that thought is not alone, thought is not the only tool. Our whole being does not depend on thought. We have all the senses. And when we are using only one tool, then we are living partially. And there are other tools which perhaps we have forgotten. The other tools are the tool of listening, hearing. And nature has given us this capacity to listen deeply. The other tool is the tool of observation, to observe something completely, not only from our eyes, but from our whole being. Observe from all the senses, perceive from all the senses. There is a touch, there is a smell, the taste. All these senses are there. And when thought is dominating these senses, there is no freedom. So can all the senses work together in freedom? And then thought can be one of the senses. The mind can be one of the senses. No sense is dominating the other. Then there is harmony. And that harmony is intelligence of life. And when there is harmony, awareness can function freely. So awareness, in the field of awareness, senses can work, and thought can also work beautifully, intelligently. So the question is, if we try to solve each and every problem, just depending on the thought, then we are limiting our perspective, our approach. But when we are looking at the problem in wholeness, not from the perspective of the thought and the memories, but with full awareness, then we can discover the root cause of any problem. And if we really go deeply into it, the root cause of every problem is the separation, division created by thought. When we are approaching the problem only through thought, through our past memories, that itself is a problem, which generates further problems. And actually, in that process, we are not looking at the problem. There is no awareness. So, in other words, we can say that not looking at the problems, which means only approaching a problem through the tool of thought, which is actually not meeting the problems fully, then there is no attention, then there is no awareness. So absence of this full observation, the absence of full attention is the root cause of all problems. When we are not paying attention, then thought and fear are occupying whole of our space, whole of our consciousness. But we can pay attention to this whole process. Now, for example, now we are looking at this, the whole problem, the main problem in our consciousness. We are paying attention to this. And in this paying attention, we can instantly feel that another quality of energy is coming. When we are listening deeply, instantly we can experience another quality of energy emerging in our consciousness. The moment we are observing something fully, completely, observing from a quiet mind, we can instantly experience another kind of energy. So, this attention is invoking a different quality of energy. And this energy is available at any moment. So, the single factor which is dominating our consciousness can be turned into another single factor, which is the response, the complete response to all our problems. So, for now, as I said, thought and fear are dominating our consciousness. That is the single factor. And to put it in another words, inattention is dominating our consciousness. Lack of awareness is dominating our consciousness because of our wrong education, because of our long historical conditioning, because perhaps nobody has pointed it out. So this inattention or unawareness is the single factor dominating our psyche. And if we become aware of this factor, if we bring complete attention to inattention, then that attention becomes the single factor which can solve all our problems. So the solution is not far away from the problem. As Krishnaji says all the time, the solution is in the problem. The answer is in the question. If we can learn the art of staying with the question, if we can learn the art of approaching that question. So if we really understand the root cause of all our problems, all our suffering is inattention, is lack of awareness, lack of observation, lack of listening, lack of freedom. So then what is the next step? There is no other step. It is simply to pay attention to this, what is blocking us from being aware, from being attentive. And the moment we become aware of the block is removed. The moment we pay attention to inattention, there is attention. But as I said, mind does not believe in it. It believes in trying to find out some very complicated solution. It loves to walk on certain paths, inventing some systems, methods. What is very simple, it is unbelievable for the mind, for the complicated mind, because it demands complication. But the solution can be very simple. Now the question could be, why don't I pay attention? We can stay with this question. Why don't I pay attention? Why don't I see that inattention, the lack of awareness, is the root cause of the problem? If any problem is arising, when thought is artificially generating a problem, why don't I see it? Why don't I look at it? If I can hold a question in the space of attention, which means the state of love, because attention is love. In attention, there is no judgment. I am not judging myself from past memories. I'm not saying I am good or bad. I'm not saying that the other person is good or bad. I'm simply watching. I'm simply looking and listening. And in that space of awareness and attention, I can watch how the thought creates the me, how thought creates an artificial identity of myself, of others. And when I'm living with artificial identities, imaginary identities created by thought, I'm living in the field of suffering. I'm creating suffering for me and for the others. I'm not living from that ground of silence, from the ground of compassion. So paying attention to this fact brings this different quality of living. And in this attention, the me, the center, becomes silent. Because then thought is not habitually creating a psychological center. Thought creates this psychological center when there is no awareness. Then it is all the time projecting all those images and believing those images to be true, to be the only reality. And that's a great mistake. If I'm only a reality created by thought, created by an image, then I am subject to lot of suffering, lot of hurts. Then anything can hurt me because I am very fragile. When I don't realize who am I, what am I, then I am very vulnerable because I am living with the identity created by thought and the images and the past memories, which is actually false. And when I am living in the false world, then there is a possibility of suffering, pain all the time. Then I can identify with the pains which I received, for example, in childhood. Because I never look at it, I never question it. The person who received a certain hurt or certain trauma in the childhood is already dead, it's gone. I am only continuing that trauma through memories. I forget that I have now become mature. I have grown up. And what happened in the past, of course, I can learn from it, but that is no longer here. The past is dead. All the incidents are dead in this very moment. Past becomes active when there is no awareness, when there is no attention. Then I am living with the identification with the past. with whatever happened. So can I become awake to this fact that I'm no longer a child. I'm no longer what I was last year or 15 years back or in my childhood. The fact is that I'm alive now in this moment. And whatever has happened is already dead. Now my only responsibility, the sacred responsibility, is to be aware, is to be awake and see the absurdity of living in the thought world. I can see it in this very moment, and that seeing itself is freedom. All the traumas, all the hurts, all the pains, they belong to the thought world, the memories. If I can let go of all that, it is to just recognize, see the fact that it no longer exists. It exists only in the memories. If I see it very clearly, that it does not exist in this very moment, and that seeing, that realization is freedom from all past traumas and hurts. Because again, if we watch, mind loves to live with pain, the past pain and hurts. And this is quite tragic. This is a great contradiction in the human brain. That we want to be free from all the suffering, but at the same time, we hold on to suffering. If we can see this fallacy of the brain, this great paradox, that this is not the way of life. This is not the way of really living life. Life is to be lived with great freedom, with great peace, with great love. And if I'm not aware, if I'm not attentive, then all those past patterns are dominating my life, dominating my present. Then we are living with the pain bodies. And all those pain bodies are triggered by memories, those thoughts. Just paying attention to that. And in the fire of attention, attention is like a fire. Pure observation is like a fire. In that pure attention, pure observation, one can realize what is false, completely false, and being free from that false. I can realize all these hurts, traumas projected by thought, they are actually false. Memories, thoughts only are holding on to it. And instantly there can be a letting go. If I realize that I am not my thoughts, I am not my memories, I am not my past. Unfortunately, I am living like a past. I am living like a memory. I am living like a thought. And when I realize it, this is not life. This is not living. Then there is a natural, effortless letting go, effortless freedom. Because this is the only life we have, to live fully, completely. If I am wasting my life in all these past stories, in these problems, then I'm missing a great gift. I'm betraying a sacred trust of the universe. We are all manifestation of that sacred energy. Every single creature is the manifestation of that timeless energy. And when I'm living life, being caught in the time, in the psychological time, which creates fears, problems, then I'm disconnected with this wholeness, with this great beauty. And the connection, the deep connection comes back the moment there is an attention, the moment there is pure observation, moment there is a pure listening. So the single factor which can solve all our problems is this attention, which is love and compassion. So can I remind myself every day, what is taking me away from this deep love and compassion? What is taking me away from attention? Can I pay attention to that? I don't have to force myself. But there be a simple reminder? An year is going to end. A new year is coming. Can I tell myself, can I ask myself this question? Can I let go of all that has happened in my life? All the pleasures, all the pains, all the hurts, all my success, all my failure, everything. Actually, everything is already dead. It's already gone. The only value it could be is to learn from it and move ahead. So can I begin my life as if this is the only day, the only new moment of my life? I don't know what is going to happen in the future. Whatever has happened is already past, is gone. This living moment is the only treasure I have. Can I live it with full responsibility? And the responsibility is to be awake, to be aware, to be attentive, to be loving, to be compassionate. So can I live with this quality? And when I'm not living with this quality, can I be aware of it? So can I live life from this space of attention, from this space of silence, the space of pure observation? Then life has a totally different quality, a totally different dimension. I'm not living all the time from the known. There is a fragrance of the unknown, the fragrance of the timeless, which cannot be put into words. There can be some indicators as we are sharing now, but we can feel it non-verbally in the deepest core of our hearts, of our being.